Bom dia a todos os que nos acompanham nessa manhã de sexta-feira. É um prazer tê-los
Good
conosco.
morning, everyone who's here with us. We are um, we are very happy to be here. We have sadly so much waste in the sea, and it makes us happy to be here with so many people who are partners of this project, this marine litter prevention project. This is an iconic project that seeks to prevent pollution in marine environments caused by solid waste. And our aim is to improve solid waste management in cities. And so we're very happy to be able to develop this project along with so many of our partners. And I'd like to start by thanking the Swedish Environmental Protection Agency. We have so many pioneers with us since 2018. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for being a partner of ours. I'd also like to thank the ISWA for all the technical support provided, and specifically on with Dr. Kostas Velis, who is a leader in this field of research. I'd also like to thank our association, which is represented in Sweden, and as well as my friend, my friend Avval Sverige, and so many other people who are instrumental in helping us. And of course, the president and director of CETESB here in Brazil, who has, since the beginning, uh, been a real partner of ours to help prevent marine waste. In the city of Bertioga, in the World Water Day, we kicked off this project with a great event and a great action to clean up the Santos region. And Santos is now leading the wave of of marine waste prevention. I'd also like to thank SEMA. SEMA is a great partner of ours. So please extend our thanks to Secretary Marcos and to everyone who is really helping us achieve this. And of course, Dr. Arnaldo Jardim and Mr. Giuliani and everyone involved in appropriate solid waste management. It's a great honor for me to be here and um, with Minister Arnaldo Jardim, and also uh, Deputy Janinho Juliano, who authored two laws respectively, and they're really pillars that give us the base for all of the actions that we can undertake right now. So I'm very happy to be here this morning with all of you for this, our second international conference. And we are presenting some pioneering results from a whole group of organizations, the ISWA, the ABRELP, Avval and Leeds University, which have been developed here in Brazil over the past 12 months in Manaus, which was a very, very iconic case that really taught us how to manage waste in the city of Manaus. And also in the case of uh, Rio Grande Bahia in Rio de Janeiro, in several municipalities, including Angra dos Reis. And so we've been approaching this topic of marine waste in these locations, and we're very happy to bring these developments to you because we have no doubt that they will be incredibly interesting and fruitful. I would also like to thank especially the presence and dedication of the Abrelpi technical team. Without their leadership and involvement, without each and every one of the members of the technical team, coordinated by Gabriela Otero and Fernanda and Lorena as well, over these past few months, regardless of how bad the pandemic was, they went to all these cities, to Manaus, to Bahia, to Rio, and they integrated the data and the actors. So I have a small spoiler for you. We have today 3 products that are extremely relevant, and it's all thanks to them. So, ladies, thank you so much. I have no question that this will be an excellent result. So I'm very happy to release the first delivery today for this new phase of marine litter prevention and waste-free waters. We have an institutional video that will show a little bit of the spirit behind the Waste Free Waters project. So we're not at Cannes, but we do have a big new release. This has never been seen before, so I hope you like it. There's a lot of reflection in the video. I'm not going to spoil the ending, but I hope you like it. So please get ready. We are now going to roll tape. But first, thank you once again for your presence, for being here, you in specific. Thank you very much. And now,
Memories are pieces we leave on the road of our lives. And some roads become harder over the years. It's when we ask ourselves, what if we tried to make it different? In moments of tranquility, we can feel how much we get from life, from the planet. Everything that I could do, everything that I had and shared with who I loved. But wasn't it too much? What if I tried to learn about the destination of everything I've thrown away throughout the road? Remembering the few cigarettes I've smoked, how many cigarette butts were left in the sand, thrown out onto the curbsides? A seemingly small piece, but one that causes so much damage. Toxins that kill us and poison our planet. Where did everything end up? The boxes that packed all those memories and all the gifts, electronics, bags, packages, never bothered me, as it was not my problem. Who is responsible for the battery that is exhausted and no longer useful in a flashlight? Batteries that were once used in my grandma's radio to listen to that old country song? Yes, memories from another time when I loved to wake up at my granny's house to wait for the milk to be delivered at our door in a bottle. When did we decide to replace reusable bottles with single-use ones? And that old mattress I've taken to the corner of the block I used to live in. I thought, soon someone will come to pick it up. Now I wonder, did someone really take it away from there? An entire house thrown away in the environment. How did it get here? And how life would be without the memories left on the road. Is it possible to erase all the waste that I left? Impossible. We are made of memories, and memories bring important lessons to teach us. And what if we really make it different from now on? That's it. We must act now to change now. Each one of us can make the difference. We cannot wait. The future depends on how we make things happen now.
Maravilha. Obrigada a todos.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Carlos, thank you for your words. It's a great honor to head the Abrelp technical team. We are we're so strongly in the vanguard of these innovations for the waste sector, and it's a true honor to be part of this. I'd also like to thank Fernanda Romero and Lorena Dobri, the three of us together, and everyone at Abrelp, Mr. Gabriel, Chris, Graça, everyone is working so hard to help make all this happen. Well, this is our second international conference. The first was in 2019 in São Luís, in the state of Maranhão. 2 years ago, but it feels like it was 20 years ago because of the pandemic. We've kind of lost sense of time and touch, but we're keeping the flame lit and keeping our relationship alive. I'm very happy that you are here with us, signing in through YouTube, through Waste Free Waters, however you're connected. We don't have that much time, but today is worth our time because we are going to show some brand new results from different locations. And in the afternoon, our afternoon, we have some workshops for some of the research we've been doing in several locations and in partnership with the Ministry of the Environment here in Brazil. We actually have 4 different topics that we'll be talking about, and they all help prevent garbage from reaching the water. And in this sense, and to proceed with our day, I would like to call to give our welcome and talk a little bit about the project. I'd like to invite first Mrs. Bergerosvingi.
Thank you, Gabriella, and what a fantastic video. Very, very good. So, dear representatives and experts and colleagues, I'm so happy to be able to join this important discussion and to welcome you to this conference, the second international conference on marine litter prevention. The environmental cooperation between Sweden and Brazil has a long history. The first memorandum of understanding between our two countries on environmental cooperation was signed in November 2013. The Swedish Environmental Protection Agency is the central environmental agency of Sweden. And thus, we've been part of the implementation of the environmental cooperation with Brazil for many areas, and notably food waste prevention, sustainable waste management, and marine littering. And we also have a collaboration with public Brazilian institutes, municipalities, and private actors. So pollution from plastic waste is an environmental problem of a global concern. The Swedish Environmental Protection Agency, Swedish EPA, work actively on the national and the global arena with the overarching goal to reduce the environmental impact of plastic. Saving the planet for future generations, more sustainable, is one of the core areas of the work for the Swedish EPA, the so-called generation goal. The Swedish EPA is responsible for developing policies for our government in this area. Plastic is one of the main focus to achieve this. As a part of this work, the Swedish EPA had opportunity project in the BRIC countries with the aim to reach a more sustainable plastic use and the sound management of plastic waste in line with the global conventions such as the Basel Convention and the Regional Sea Convention. International Solid Waste Association, ISWA, have been granted funds to carry out the project together with Abrelpe, AFA Sverige and Leeds University. The project aims to prevent plastic waste leakage to oceans and rivers through seaside protection capacity building activities. Another key component in the project includes data collection and development on visual displays, allowing easy interpretation of hotspots for plastic pollution in Brazil. I just want to say that I'm honored to be a little particle of this project concerning marine littering and to prevent plastic waste pollution from land-based sources. This project will help the understanding of sources and pathways for plastic pollution, support the development of techniques for sampling and prevention of plastic pollution, and contribute to policy development at the local, national, and the international level. So it's great to see there is such an engagement and collaboration to increase our knowledge. We should also take care of the lesson learned from this project and consider this to be the first step forward and towards a goal of preventing plastics and to fulfill the goals of the UN Sustainable Development Goals with a special emphasis on Goal 12, responsible consumption and production, and Goal 14, life below water. So I wish you all a good conference and a fruitful cooperation for the future. And I just say, keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ossa. Muito obrigada pelas palavras e pela parceria. Nós estamos muito...
Thank you very much for your words and your partnership. We are so happy and so pleased at this continuing relationship. It's been going on for quite a while now, and we hope to keep it going for a long time, not just in terms of waste-free waters, but in other waste management solutions as well. I'd now pass the word to Aditi Ramola, who is Technical Director of ISWA. Aditi, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gabi. Thank you. What a powerful video that was. Yeah, it makes us think about our impact on the planet. I think it was just the perfect start to this very important workshop today. So good morning, everyone. My name is Aditi Ramola, and I currently lead the technical team at the General Secretariat of the International Solid Waste Association, or ISWA for short. Just briefly, for those of you that don't know ISWA yet, we are a global, independent, and non-profit association that promotes sustainable, comprehensive, and professional waste management, while also promoting a transition to a circular economy. We are a member-based organization headquartered in Rotterdam in the Netherlands, and we have members from over 110 countries and national members in several countries, including Brazil. Our president is Carlos Silva Filho, who you just heard from in the beginning. So it's absolutely wonderful to hear from him as well from the beginning. Just briefly about us, we are open to individuals and organizations from all sectors. So the scientific community, from public institutions to public and private companies, from around the globe working in the field of waste management. And I'll stop here. You can find out more information on our website. So the strength of ISWA lies in the strength of our members. And one such partner, such as a strong partner of ours, is Abrelpe, who is ISWA's national member in Brazil and also the leading implementing partner of this project. ISWA has been absolutely honored to be part of the project, working on integrated solutions to fight water sources of pollution towards plastic recovery and circularity, particularly in protected regions of Brazil. So Manaus and Ilha Grande Bay, that's where we've been working. And we began this project in July 2020. That was in the middle of a global pandemic. And through the strong support and network of our colleagues at Abrelpe, and I have to thank Gabriela's team, Gabriela, Lorena, Fernanda, we've been working extremely closely with them. None of the project timelines were affected. We were not allowed to travel internationally, but yet because of the strong support from Abrelpe, we were able to continue the work on the ground with utmost precaution and care in place according to COVID-19 protocols and guidelines. I'm very proud to say our team was, absolutely healthy throughout the project, and some very interesting results and findings have come out through on-the-ground reporting, on-the-ground collection of data, which now they will share through the reports and through also the workshops. So once again, ISWA is extremely proud to be part of the project, and we are extremely grateful to the Swedish EPA who's funding the project. For the trust and support that they have provided us throughout the year. Our partners in the project was, of course, Abrelpe, who's the leading implementing agency, University of Leeds and Uppsala Sverige. So it was a consortium of 4 strong partners. So we're very proud to be associated with this, even in a very small way. So I wish you all a very good day and some exciting and fruitful discussions during the workshops. I'm joining you from Bangalore, India. So I'll be with you sleepily throughout the whole day. So I'll see you later. Thank you so much, Gabi. Back to you.
Thank you, Aditi. Obrigada. Obrigada por sua parceria.
Thank you, Aditi. Thank you for your partnership. Thank you for your team and the whole organization, because you all added for us for litter prevention in Brazil. We're honored to have you with us. So now I'll give the word to Vine Vikvist, who is the representative of the Sweden Residuals Association in Sweden. So please welcome Vine.
Thank you, Gabi, and thank you so much for the introduction. And I also would like to congratulate to this very important brand new video you show in the beginning, and I really like the end with it's like a Greta-like image in the end of the video. Very important to catch the connection to climate issue. I think was a great thing to do. Avfall Sverige is the National Association for Waste Management in Sweden. We are also the national member of ISWA. And we are very proud to be part of this consortium responsible for these projects and today's conference. I also would like to highlight what Gabi and also Carlos said before, that this project was taking place in a very special setting because of the pandemic. And it was really successful, I think, due to the fact that we had the pandemic all the time. Marine litter issues are very important, and some experts are ranking the problem with marine litter as the 3rd threat to the environment on the globe after climate and biodiversity. So it's a very, very important issue. And as you all remember, a couple of weeks ago, the new IPCC report came out, and it really pointed out the importance to connection of the consumption and waste management in connection to climate issue. And earlier this spring, there was also a new report from UNEP, which highlighted that the part of the global green gases emissions coming from waste management, mainly then from dumping and landfill, are increasing and now measuring like 15 to 20%. So it's a really, really big issue we are talking about. Before I close, I want to thank especially Swedish EPA for the funding, of course, and the important partners, and of course, Amperelpe and its team, and not least, also the municipalities and the regions who actually were very enthusiastic and provided all the information necessary for gaining all the data we are now going to share. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vaine, for your kind words and also for your partnership. Obrigada, obrigada, Vaine.
Yeah. Thank you, Vaine. Thank you. Just to close our presentation, of our partners, I'd like to invite Mr. Costas Bellis to represent the University of Leeds. Costas.
Thank you, dear Gabi, the Carlos experts, friends. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today. I'm an academic based at the University of Leeds in the UK, but also I'm a long-standing member of the International Solid Waste Association, and we had the pleasure to work in the past with Ablerpi and be many times in Brazil. So I'm a big friend of Brazil as well. So we are extremely pleased to have this event happening and this second conference, and I was happy to be there in person in the first conference. So see this as a second major step in a continued effort, determined effort of multiple stakeholders in Brazil to tackle the problem of marine litter and plastics pollution. Brazil is too important, is too big, is such a great place not to address this thing. And I think through projects like this has the opportunity to demonstrate global leadership in addressing global challenges. I see that, as I said, as a stepping stone. What we have done here is that we had a unique opportunity to apply two of the methodologies we have been developing to quantify marine litter and plastics pollution. First, the plastic pollution calculator, which is a toolkit generated on behalf of the International Solid Waste Association. And I would like to thank also President Carlos for his continued support in that direction. And the other is a global model, actually now used by United Nations Habitat to quantify plastic pollution for the very first time on a global scale. So Brazil is showing pioneering steps in that direction. I do hope that the results that we obtain from the two local case studies in Manaus and Ilha Grande Bay and the entire Brazil overview will enable us to make steps towards tangible improvements, combating plastic pollution, and measuring things is the first critical step in that direction. Being the one last to introduce my organization, possibly I'll have to bother you and thank once again, all the project partners, not least our funders, and thank you also for being such a great positive friend throughout the project in support from the Swedish EPA and making things happen in a COVID adaptation time, and of course ISVA for coordinating and General Secretariat, and all the Ablerpi from President Carlos to Gabi to Fernanda to Lorena. It's all of you and the teams behind you. We've been fantastic in collecting evidence and helping us making it happen. So what's out this area? This is just a stepping stone, what I see, and I think Brazil will be better prepared after today to tackle plastic pollution because we understand more about it day by day. Last but not least, I would like to thank my team, Dr. Joshua Kortum and Mr. Ed Cook, who have worked very hard day and night to collect also and run the models and interpret the data. And we just look forward to this excellent workshop. And of course, we look forward to see action on the ground combating plastic pollution through sound waste and resources management, as it is in line with the ISVA mission and vision and with the actual support implemented by Ablerpe throughout Brazil. So thank you very much, and over to you, Gabi.
Thank you very much, Costas. Obrigada, Costas, pelo apoio
Thank
da
you, Costas, for the support of the University of Leeds, your team, Josh and Ed. So thank you for them. And now we close our round of presentations of our partners, all the organizations involved who put their hands into work to make this project work, which is waste-free water. It comprises 11 municipalities in Brazil, representing 14 million people, and we all have this compromise of litter prevention. Now I'd like to start another round with our authorities, our partners who are here supporting, our enthusiasts who are here supporting our project of waste-free water. Now I'm going to start with Patricia, who is the president of the Environmental Association, and also Maria Guirida, who also works on sea litter prevention. So good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone who's here in Brazil. Good afternoon to those who are in Sweden. I'm really happy for being here. I'm really happy to start this opening of the second International Conference on Marine Litter Prevention. And I am always in contact with the president of Abrelp and ISVA, Dr. Carlos Silva Filho. And I would also like to congratulate Mrs. Ossa, who is the director of the Environmental Association in Sweden. And also had the opportunity to get to know many others of you when you were here in Brazil. I'd like to congratulate the authorities who were here present, the authorities from the municipality of Santos, Arnaldo Jardim, and all the others who are here with us. CETESB has a huge work as the environmental agency in the state of São Paulo in the topic of environmental protection. And we start monitoring our beaches in the 70s. And after that, we started to monitor the sea coast in 2010. Our first work with the municipality of Bertioga was really successful, and CETESB is the regional center for aid along with the Latin American countries and the Caribbean, because we exchange knowledge and technology to all of these countries. One of these focus is the Convention of the Basile. So we don't have only the partnership with Abrelp, we have other works and other projects going on, which were presented in the first workshop held by the United Nations in the Seychelles before the pandemics, in the beginning of 2020, which dealt with the main priorities of this subject. And the main focus of this project is prevention. So I see that Abrelp and ISVA, the Sweden agency, I think this is a very successful partnership and we all have to continue together. We are now at the decade of the ocean, so we must work more than ever all together, because we have the goal of the Sustainable Development Achievement, which is the number 17 goal for the United Nations. So CETESB is available to help you out in exchanging knowledge to other cities in the country. And I reinforce here that our knowledge here in São Paulo is pretty different from other states. We have 47% of appropriate destination for our residues in our state. And this is all linked to a license agreement that we have. So more than 40% of residues that go to the sea, they are originated in the seaside, in the continent. So we have to find a proper destination for them. So both results from the Deputy Arnaldo Jardim, this project has been a new mark on our full research. I'd like to invite you all for this conference, and I hope we can discuss and find alternatives to advance our next steps in the proper prevention, which is the real focus for a good quality of life and an equilibrated environment. So thank you very much. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you for this partnership with CETESB, because they are always supporting us all over the country. They work in so many fronts, and they recognize the importance we have in the legal frame in order to create a favorable environment for us to prevent marine litter, and also in the Department of Residues, because we're going to talk about this word many, many times, prevention, until everyone fully understands it and put it into practice. Now, I'll give you the word to Deputy Arnaldo Jardim, who is our partner for a long time, and he's here with us in all the fronts. So welcome, Deputy.
Thank you very much, Gabriela. Hello to everyone. I'd like to give a warm welcome to everyone. It is so important that you are here today so that we can raise awareness and initiatives. We're very proud to have everyone here with you, and Mr. Carlos Silva as president of ISVA. This for us is a great opportunity so that we in Brazil can stop being a villain and start being a protagonist in the international scale. I'd like to welcome our international partners in the figure of Vine Vikvist and everyone else who has spoken here about partnership. I'd like to give a warm welcome and thanks to everyone from the private sector who is here, as well as public institutions such as CETESB. It really makes us all very proud because of the initiative they have taken. They are a real landmark internationally. I'm so happy to be here with Gabriela and Janino, who is an excellent representative. I'd like to draw attention to three things. First, the international policy on residue and waste. We have an expressly written clause that talks about not casting waste into waters. Waste does not belong to the water. Waste winds up in the water. So we need to prevent that. And we need to punish these actions when that's required. But most of all, we need to prevent this from happening. Specifically, we need to protect the water. You know that Brazil has 8,500 kilometers of coastline. So it's very, very important to have this integrated action and this partnership. And it's something that I'm very happy to see between the public and private sectors. The private sector is incorporating ISG principles, and these need to be developed, yes. And we are now looking to very quickly take steps to implementing a carbon market. I have no doubt that this will be the most effective economic instrument to help us develop these initiatives. We need to prevent this type of waste. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Obrigada, obrigada, deputado. Na
Thank
sequência,
you, Representative.
ao Genin Zuliani, também deputado
And
federal.
now, Janine Zuliani, also a federal representative and another ally in this fight. Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here in this international conference with everyone. I'd like to give my warm thanks to everyone, all the technicians, everyone, Carlos representing Abrelpi, and Patricia, my dear friend Arnaldo Jardim, who is a great representative of ours, and everyone who is here with us. Congratulations for organizing this meeting, this conference. And I would like to say that on behalf of the organization that I'm representing, the Public Sector Association, I can assure you this is an extremely relevant topic, and we are now celebrating 1 year of the law that was passed. And now I'd like to thank the person responsible for that too. And so much work has been done in the past, so much important work. And yet in the near future, our upcoming work is even more important for developing financial independence, and to also celebrate the first year of the administration of so many mayors here around Brazil. And this is a really important topic in many coastal cities here in Brazil. We know that these cities have an essential role in protecting our oceans. So I'd like to leave you with this message of optimism so that we can work to always have a more engaging discussion with our people and our culture, because these people, these children are our future. They are the ones who will grow up and bring about the work that we are teaching them. So a warm welcome to everyone. Thank you very much, Mr. Representative. It's very heartening to know that we have this support in the legislative sector here. And there are so many details involved. We know that waste management in Manaus, which is one of the landmarks here, as well as Camboriú, they are different locations that require different efforts. And it's very important for us to have this kind of federal scope. And so to continue, I now invite Malu Freire, who heads the State of São Paulo Environmental Agency. Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone, whether you're in Brazil, Sweden, or wherever you are. I'm honored to represent and welcome all of the legislators and politicians who are here with us, as well as the private sector. Our goal is to work together to prevent waste from reaching the seas. So thank you to Mr. Carlos Silva Filho from Abrelpi, and to the representatives from ISVA as well, and to all of the people involved. Patricia, I'm so proud of our work at CETESB, Representative Jardim, Representative Giuliani, and on behalf of the president of these associations, I extend the institutional thanks as well to your institutions. I have long seen the results of how important it is to work together to improve our environment. Since 1988, this project has been involved in raising awareness of appropriate waste disposal, especially focused on the beaches. We draw attention to trash found on the sand, and we are now expanding this issue. And the topic that we broach, we all know that prevention is the most important element. We know how difficult it is to clean up the beach, and especially so when we talk about micro waste, nanoplastics, and a lot of this waste comes from the land. So it's not just because you live in the coast that you don't have to worry about this, because the waste is something that is transported through all the waterways. And so we do sometimes focus on tourists and people who are using the beach for leisure. But we also have to remember the infrastructure of environmental protection. Solid waste management is something that also touches on the chapter dealing with water waste. So there is a strategic plan in place. We call it DEMAUMI for the acronym here. And it aims to create a system through which we can understand the source of this waste, how it arrived, where we found it. And this information will provide the subsidy for future projects at the state and federal levels, as well as municipal. So our ultimate goal, which is to provide proper management of our waste, and in fact, to add value to it and to bring it back into the value chain. That's our ultimate goal. And to work with people who live in regions that are currently threatened. I remember that our campaign began with, there were real trash dumps by the water. There was no management. We didn't even have a state level policies in place at the time. And so we really progressed. We can see how much improvement there's been, but there's still a lot of challenge. As we saw in that video, what a great video. I'd like to congratulate everyone involved. And when it comes to solid waste, we are working on a very important front here at the ministry. And we hope to contribute in a large scale to everyone, not just with people, but with companies, agencies, technologies, the academic sector as well. It is extremely important to continue this work of environmental education, and I am sure that it will see results. The topic of residue and waste is so complex, and yet it gives us an opportunity to further our work and to empower our society to improve quality of life. So that's the message I want to bring. I want to put myself and my agency at your disposal, as our representative has said. And so I emphasize his words. I'd also like to say hello to Mr. Marcio Paulo. I'm sorry I forgot to mention you, but thank you to everyone. I know that we are very encouraged by your presence here today. Thank you. Thank you, Malu. You mentioned some key topics like prevention, and I'd like to add, on top of prevention and action, the topic of value. One of our biggest challenges today is to bring value to waste, which will make it stop being waste and start being material. And if we can improve these structures and associations, then we can improve the plight of the sea. And so without further ado, I'd like to pass the word to the secretary from the city of Santos. And I live in the city of Santos, so the environmental agency in Santos, they never stop hearing my voice. So I'm very, very happy to be with you and to help the work that we do. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'd like to thank, on behalf of Carlos Filho Abrelpi and the Swedish Association, our representatives, Mr. Arnaldo Jardim and Janinho Giuliani, my friend who is today an elected representative. I'm very happy to continue the work that has been done. I never tire of saying this. When Abrelpi came here, Santos had one of Brazil's largest libraries of residue found on water. And in 2018, when we received a visit from Abrelpi here, and then later in 2019, it's such a pleasure to have this wonderful agent of change who is Gabriela. It's amazing to see her gusto in working and making things happen. So Gabriela, thank you. You are really instrumental here in Brazil. And our goal is to take plastic out from one of our lungs, which is the ocean. We all know that 50% of the air we breathe has oxygen that comes from the ocean. The other 50% comes from the forests. But the 50% that comes from the water is heavily plasticized today, and we know that we need to remove this plastic. So we have a lot of work ahead of us and behind us. We've been doing this for a while. We have the help of federal and state politicians, and we're very happy to say that Abrelpi is one of our partners. We will have we have some important and exciting news coming up in the next few days. And look, it's such a pleasure to work in this field because we see people becoming more aware. We work in this every day, and it's priceless. It's really priceless. So, Patricia, I'm sorry, I forgot to acknowledge your presence, and Malu. You are our great partners at CETESB, Malu and Sima. So a warm welcome to everyone, all of our representatives. We have a lot of work ahead of us. We're not even at the halfway point yet, right? So thank you, Gabriela. All the best. Thank you. Thank you, Marcia. That's right. We are not even halfway there yet, but we are full of energy and we want to continue. So thank you for your partnership. And I'd like to thank Marcos Fernandes personally, Deborah Andagi as well, all of the interns who are involved. You're great people. You're amazing individuals, such a robust team. So thank you for welcoming me so much. And now, Marcos Liborio, currently an elected representative from the city of Santos. Thank you, Gabriela. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to thank Gabriela and Abrelpi on behalf of everyone, and the personal involvement of Carlos and the whole team. And you really don't let the ball drop. You always, you're always reminding everyone, and Marcio as well, who is also very instrumental, Patricia Iglesias, who's a great friend of mine, president of CETESB, and Malu Freire. When we talk about Marcos, Dutrani, it's kind of difficult to even find the words because they raise our awareness to such an extent. Representatives Arnaldo and Janinho, thank you so much. Thank you to our Swedish partners and our Indian partners. I'm so fond of these countries and their presence with us. And the summer of climate is something that was also essential. And today, in the legislative sector, we continue to have this very important focus, and we can never forget that the ocean is our sea, as we like to say here in Brazil. And the beach in Santos, it creates employment. It's a location where we participate in sports and leisure, in relaxation. It's really essential for us here in Brazil. And Santos is a city that is fundamentally located by the coast. And it's a place where we have been encouraging people to debate and talk about the ocean and our impact on it. We've been working on influencing our kids, because this generation is the generation that will do our work in the future. Another of our focus points is on traditional fishing, which is a very big part of culture in Santos. And that's another of our efforts to improve prevention among these cultures. Yesterday, I was happy to be with the mayor of Santos, Mayor Rogério. We were very close to the Vila Silva dike, and we were talking about drainage and changes in weather. But we also talked about waste, and it's extremely important to discuss these actions and to participate, because it's pivotal for these efforts to be to be coordinated. So thank you and congratulations to everyone involved in creating this video. It's a little shocking, and that's the whole point. It really hits you hard. And we need to understand that the future depends on our actions today. So all the best to everyone. I hope we have a great conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Liborio. Yeah, we are always ahead of this topic. You even followed our backstages, right? Even the confidential information. But we could provide the impact we wanted. And pretty soon we're going to spread it on our social media and our YouTube. So everyone who's following us, keep on following, not only today, but on the future, in the near days. Now I'm going to give the floor to Ulisses, the president of the base committee of Ilha Grande, and also responsible for the ecologic projects in the region. Thank you, Ulysses. Welcome. I think he's not with us anymore. He might have had a connection problem. By the way, we're having lots of connection problems because of our electricity supplier. Well, so I'll forward to Jamassi Avelino Nascimento, who is the representative of the regional ministry and the coordinator of the Institutional Sanitation Association. Thank you, Jamassi. Thank you. Thank you, Gabriela. Thank you, Abrelpi. I am Jamassi Jr. I'm representing the Sanitation Secretariat, and I want to compliment, and I would like to add Mr. Carlos Silva, who's our partner. The Secretary of Maranhão says he's the key role in every discussion we make in our department, in our area. I'd like to congratulate and say hello to all the authorities here, especially Mrs. Patricia Iglesias from CETESB, Malu Freire, the representative of the Environmental Secretariat. We are expecting to have another event of waste management on the 9th, along with the state government, and I'm really happy to be part of this event. Would like to congratulate federal deputies, Angelino and Giuliani, who were here, our spokespeople on the sanitation subject. They are partners of NDR. And I would like to say that I'm really pleased to be here. This is a need that MDR has to talk about, because the Sanitation Secretariat is responsible for the national policy on sanitation throughout the country. We have our country has over 3 million landfills all over the country. So mainly on solid residues, it is a big challenge. And as we have realized, and as we have noticed and said before, we are dealing with prevention, marine litter prevention, and it takes place since its origin, since our houses, starting with the way we dispose things. And we have to take care of the urban environment to prevent marine litter. This is the role of the Regional Environmental Ministry, to work on the closure of the landfills and give appropriate disposal for them, because it also brings legal security for us. It's legal safety, because we have private partnerships, we have new incentives. And this has been happening. It's something real that has been going on since our new mark. And this is our role, to take care of the urban environment and bring options of proper disposal, of final proper disposal. And people cannot do it by themselves. The federal government is along with them. And it starts since our work in the small municipalities, as well as the implementation of fees and taxes. We have to work on this department as a department that should be remunerated by the service provided. This is an important initiative so that we have a solution to close the landfills all over Brazil. So I'd like to thank all the participants for this unique experience we're having to be part of this event. Thank you very much. And I wish you all a great event, great presentations. I'm really honored to be here. Thank you. Thank you, Jamassi. Actually, after talking about this legal environment, the front of the federal deputies, we have a local executive who is compromised, and state agencies are also compromised to us. We have this commitment in federal level, which is a proper environment for the regional development. So we see that marine litter prevention is a honor for a development environment, for proper structures, because all these together makes a proper disposal of marine litter. So thank you for your presence. I invite you to follow us throughout the day, if you can, because our agenda in the morning is pretty interesting. I'm going to be brief on the next 2 hours, and we're going to present the 2 cases developed throughout the project in our last year, and also the launch of 2 products. I'm going to call them product, but they are fruits of technical assistance provided with a customized work to Manaus in the state of Amazonas. Manaus is the capital of Amazonas, in the heart of the Amazon forest. And also the work developed in Ilha Grande Bay, which comprises the municipalities of Mangaratiba, Paraty, and Angra dos Reis. And also Ilha Grande, which gives the name of the beautiful and big region, but also suffers with marine litter. Ulysses, it seems he has been cut off, but if he comes back on the moment of the presentation of Ilha Grande Bay, we will give him the word because he was our partner during this project. It was a very fruitful participation. And also other organizations like SUA Ambiental, who has helped us with their volunteers in the field, like Carlos said. This is a pandemic moment, and we could make this work with all the attention, with all the care. Nobody was contaminated, and we could take it forward and be here to present the results to you. After, these results are going to be available at Abrelp and ISVA platforms. So I'd like to start, just to cut off the presentations now, I'm going to start with Fernanda Romero, who is the environmental analyst of Abrelp's team, of the team of Litter Out of Water project. So Fernanda, thank you very much and welcome. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Gabi. Good morning. I'm really pleased to be here and present the results of a project that we are really proud of. And I'm really honored to share this technical knowledge with qualified professionals here. And I would like to share you with you. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Can you see my screen? So today, it's just a sum up of the project in Manaus. This is an area of the project I was most present, and these are the results from the diagnosis to the proposal technological routes. So just to be brief about our schedule in Manaus, once again, this project was developed during the pandemics, which unfortunately took from us one of our technical who was really qualified. So I'm really honored to talk about him here. And just to talk a little bit about this development, we start by developing the diagnosis, by getting to know local residues. This development started in Santos. We developed this technical knowledge We developed the methodology of our project, and everything started with a spreadsheet to collect data. The spreadsheet has been improved year after year. And in Manaus, we provided this spreadsheet in July 2020 with all the specific questions so that we could trace and have a picture of the local residues. In August, we carried out a technical visit to the municipality. That's when we could get closer of the technical team involved in the secretariat. We could get to know the main points related to residues disposal. And in September, we carried out a field work with some samples. So since our start, we have to answer two main questions, which is what is going to the sea and where does this litter come from? So in September, we made these sample collections to analyze this material from specific points. These points were defined along with the team. From October to December, we developed a diagnosis with the main characteristics and identified the main challenges. And from January to May, we proposed the technological routes, offering recommendations for the municipalities to improve waste management. So this is just a sum up about the municipal system of waste management in Manaus. So this is the main characteristic of the city. As Gabriela said, it is located in the heart of the Amazonic forest. Manaus is the capital of Amazonas, which is on the shore of Negro River, and it has a population of over 2 million inhabitants. It is located in a very important place for several activities. As you can see here, some photographs of important touristic points and commercial points in the city, just like the theater, the port area of Manaus, as you can see the commercial activities there, and also a picture of our visit during the waste collection, the residues collections in the riverby communities, the riverside communities. So just to sum up, talking about the residues, when it comes to basic sanitation services, in our last years, we had several challenges, just like in any other country in the world. So, some challenges are like, what are we going to do with all these amount of waste that all increases year after year? The city collects about 966 tons of residues per year, which is comprised by 60% on domicile waste, 38% is manual and mechanical removal, 1% is for cutting of trees, and 1.2% is for correspond for selective collection. This is the percentage of the annual waste collected. The Municipal Secretariat of Urban Cleaning, SEMUSP, is responsible for all this cleaning management, and they have helped us on collecting the data. Here you can see some specifications the municipality has on collection. We have domicile collection with mixture residues, mechanical removal such as wood, paper, mixed residues in large quantities, and manual removals, which are the same material but in less quantity. Collection of cuttings of trees, selective collection, collection, which comprises the dry recyclables, and the volume recyclables. In order to perform the services, Manaus counts on two private companies, which is divided into specific areas of the city. When they carry out the services, there is a specific and determined frequency. So domicile collection works every day. River collection works, as I showed you the picture of the riverside communities. It's carried out once a week in the basin of Tarumã. The mechanical removal, which is made through cleaning groups, mobilization groups, manual removals is carried out daily, cutting off trees and scheduled collections is carried out throughout a demand, and the selective collection is made in the points of deposit, which is permanent in the city. So people can take their waste to some points, and these points are permanent in the city. About selective collection, they take the residues to 11 cooperatives, which are registered. And now we start seeing some challenges, which is where we have focused to write our proposals. One of our main bottlenecks to advancement of the project is that Manaus works on low recycling activities, maybe for the quality of the materials. And then we have to consider the separation of the source, which is not properly made. And after that, 50% of the residues have found their inappropriate disposal.
So now, looking at a cross-section, specifically in terms of recyclability, which was such an important aspect of our project, many of these recyclables often have no market for them. Often the recycling industry is located too far from the city, so it's not worthwhile to send these materials there. And also separation at the source, as I mentioned. So here are some challenges that were photographed by the city. As you can see, disposable cups and clear bottles, and so many of these different materials. As you can see, it's essential to sort them and identify them. And these residues often, they have no effective and viable way of being taken to the recycling center. So that's one of our challenges. This photo, as I mentioned, here is a photo showing one of the services that the city of Manaus employs. So they have these ferries, and these residues, they often they become trapped in trees or bodies of water. As you can see, this photo is very shocking because it shows the scale of the challenge they face every day and every week when they do these collections. On average, 200 metric tons of residue is collected, and that's every 2 weeks. These two photos on the left of your screen show the queen of waste, which is the affectionate nickname that was given to this ferry. And on the left and bottom, this shows our visit. We followed the ferry as it did its work. Today, Manaus has approximately 150 igarapés, which are a type of stream, and they produce a large amount of waste. I mean, they don't produce it, but they collect it. So this waste is collected and taken to the Manaus waste treatment plant. It's located 21 kilometers from the city center, and it receives approximately 2,500 metric tons of solid waste every year. This system includes a number of subsystems, such as collecting and burning gases, collecting and burning a liquid runoff. They have a system for collecting and protecting the green areas, such as forests located within the city limits. This is very important. It's a very noble destination for these vegetable and plant materials, because they act as fertilizer. And these dumps, these waste dumps, are nearing the end of their life cycle. So we are finding alternatives for these materials because they can't be taken to dumps anymore. It's not possible. From there, we can identify the main challenges facing the city of Manaus today in its efforts to improve waste management. And in spite of the fact that this whole slew of services being offered by the city, and always working to make them better, there is nevertheless an important work that needs to be done to prevent irregular disposal. This is something that's critical here in Brazil. We can offer so many different ways of appropriate waste disposal, but so many people dump their waste inappropriately, and often they wind up finding their way to bodies of water. We need to work on improving the low rates of recycling, and also to give a little bit more detail about this challenge. Manaus, like so many cities, they have laws dealing with large-scale producers of waste, and so these companies, they are responsible for dealing with the waste that they produce, and yet we have challenges in complying with these laws. And so that's something we need to focus on, whether that's something we can do by distributing the locations, or maybe placing these waste containers and bags closer to waters or in other appropriate locations. That's one of our challenges. And based on these challenges, we found our paths. And now I pass the word to Gabriela, who's going to tell us more about the scenario, the samples that we collected. And so what does wind up in bodies of water, and what can we conclude from that? Gabriela? Thank you. Thank you so much. So moving on to the next slide now. What winds up finding its way into the bodies of water? Well, the research that we did began with a description of the waste management system. So we need to look at the numbers that we collected, and where they come from and where they're going. So when Fernanda showed us percentages of recycling, of post-triage materials, the locations of the trash containers and so on, all of that acts as a way for us to understand the path that waste takes to get to the sea. And so after becoming familiar with the system And after learning about Manaus, I don't know how many of you have had the chance to visit the city of Manaus, but it's a city, it's amazing that we have a city of this scale in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. It has such an interesting history. It is an extremely important city for the country, and it has an extensive territory that's totally different from something we find in a city like Sao Paulo. If I want to find something like a consumer good in Manaus, I will find it. But the question is, what kind of materials find their way there and what doesn't find its way back? So how can we build logistics and distribution to make things get there and go back? Because right now they're not finding their way back to the producers. Plastic, metal, and so many other materials find their way to the water and wind up on the beach and in our swamps, and so many questions need to be answered. This isn't just a rhetorical question. And based on the time that this project has been going, we know that Manaus was one of the epicenters of the pandemic in Brazil and one of the initial epicenters. And so we decided to restrict our study to one of the stream basins, the Igarapé basin. And I'd also like to mention Daniel Mello, who was our colleague and fellow geographer working at the city of Manaus, who helped us produce amazing maps for this project, showing the geography of the project. This map is one that he created. The survey is the work that he did. If you look on the map, you'll see some little dots, and these are the places that we visited personally to look at disposal in the waters. As Fernanda mentioned, we have over 100 small streams underneath the Manaus city. And to deal with these streams, we need minimalistic infrastructure because they're natural sources of drainage. Just like in Santos, we have the channels, which were found to be potential sources of leakage. We have we have these locations that wash the water and the waste, and all of these streams, they find their way to the Black River in Manaus, Rio Negro, and there is a long way to go, but it is a path. And so we went to these locations to investigate urban settlements and look at the igarafitas, also known as they are small channels through which the streams flow, and so we used bagged cement soil to prevent these homes, these igarafita homes, from collapsing in the future. And yet, unfortunately, we have so much irregular disposal and irregular projects and engineering being undertaken, by themselves, but by these residents who don't talk to any government agency. They just they dig the channels themselves, and that's something we have to prevent. Just a comment, please ask questions in the chat on YouTube. We have 15 minutes set aside for this in the near future before the end of this presentation. And we really want to further this debate, not just for Manaus, but everywhere. These photos were taken inside a national park, the Mindu National Park. We selected a number of locations, but these photos, they're so telling. Look at how much household waste we have. These are pictures that we took inside a city park. This is part of the Amazon forest. There's fauna, there's flora, there's biodiversity, and they have to coexist with purses, shoes, cosmetics packages, pharmaceutical packages. There's so much waste here. The gravimetric study would be amazing. Just because of the scope, we were not able to do this work, but it's still on our radar. It would shed so much light on this project. And the city of Manaus, at the time headed by Paulo Farias, an excellent representative. I don't know if he managed to connect here today, if he's watching, but thank you so much to him and his team, because they made it possible for us to really dive into these parks. And these are the nerve points of the problem. And he was not afraid to shed light on the problem. So being able to change this situation is possible thanks to the work that was done at Mindu Park and also other locations. And so we had a mission to collect samples. Because we had the gravimetric studies, we had the quantitative studies, the coverage, the scope, but we lacked information about what winds up on the water. And since Mindu was not within our geographic scope, we carried out two collections. One was by the margins, the coast of the giant stream, which is its name, despite being a small stream. It's hard to explain, but if you live in Manaus, you know where I'm talking about. We collected. There is a dry season and a wet season. So in the yellow dotted line, that's the dry season. And so at the time there was a very serious dry season. And so that's when we did this collection with the city waste professionals, who are these people in orange you can see in the photo. We collected a lot of waste from marinas. So that's from boat repairs and so on. And you can see that it's also an issue of managing the local activity, use of land. That has a lot of influence. But since the Gigante River comes from very far away, we also saw a lot of material that comes from household waste, specifically shoes. It's amazing how often people lose their shoes, their flip-flops. We found footwear all over Brazil. It might sound kind of funny, but it's really terrible, as well as cleaning products and their packaging. So you can imagine if this residue comes with the product itself and contaminates the water, these chemicals. So finding an intact package, that's something that's, we're very lucky when we can do that, because it was very rare to find a package that was intact, that was not fragmented in some way. And we also collected in a location called the Ponta Negra Beach. It's a riverine beach. And at the time there was, again, a very significant dry season. So the water was very far away from where you see here. This Google Earth photo, it's from the wet season. So it's a bit of an old photo. And so we mapped out this transect in partnership with the city waste professionals, again in orange. And it's interesting because it's a different type of beach, a different type of sand, different profile. It's interesting how this also served as a learning opportunity, because the people who, in spite of the pandemic, were at the beach, they had never seen the beach that dry or that clean. And so it was a great opportunity to talk about waste on the beach. And the gravimetric study was very interesting. I think here on this slide, as you can see, this is a luxury. We were able to use this little tractor. You can see it's a type of sieve, and it's used to collect and count the material we collect. And just as a reminder, this afternoon we have a project about methodology that we developed, and we will show the results of the methodology. And so we had help from this little tractor inside the transect, and that was very useful. I don't know if Paulo is here, but something that drew our attention is that apparently the sand is clean. The beach is very clean. But when we started collecting material from the transect, we found almost 2,500 items. Within these 2,600 square meters, so to compare with the transect from the city of Bertioga, which had 3,000 square meters, and we only found 500 items. And visually, it was the opposite. It looks dirty, but when we collect the material, it's not that polluted. And in Manaus, we found the exact opposite. When we started collecting, we were able to see how much camouflaged waste we found. Cigarette butts, beverage can, and beverage bottle, caps and seals. It's a location that appears to be clean, but it's very, very polluted, because we really dug deep into the project, the problem, counted, and it's a matter of fragmentation and behavior. The people who use this beach, they have a problem because the sand is very fluffy, and so the waste, it tends to fall down into the different stratuses of the sand. Almost 2,500 items in 2,600 square meters. And so how does this contribute to marine pollution prevention? We will talk a lot about this in the future, but just one comment. This study allowed us, for instance, to see at the city's ecological secretary, we were able to see that the sand is a type of sieve. It filters out the waste. So this evidence was very helpful because it helped us to adjust the sieve. It was actually doing its job as a sieve, but the waste was getting through, because you clean it and it's never done.
And this is the gravimetric composition of our collection. Too many cigarette butts, plastic, metal, paper, barbecue sticks, which is made of wood. And it shows some behavior of people, because people consume and they dispose on the sand. Maybe they think that as it is made of wood, it doesn't impact the environment so much, that it's organic. So there isn't a psychological understanding from the users, and we can understand their behaviors and also avoid these things to happen. I mean, stop this from happening. We have to stop the cycle. And some more characteristics of the seaside of Ponta Negra Beach. It is just a 1 kilometer beach. It has some comprehensive services and daily services because many people go there, many people visit it. We have kiosks, we have commercial establishments on the sidewalks. Just one comment, Gabi. Yeah, sure. We found lots of matchsticks, which is a characteristic of Manaus, because as we found lots of cigarette butts, we found lots of matchsticks. So this is important to realize. This brings us some very good clues. Yes, it's true, because here we usually see the smokers using the matches, but in Manaus, they don't use match, they use matchsticks. So smokers there, they use matchsticks. They are old school. Further, please. And here you can see some samples from the Viz Marine. You have seen the irregular transect, which have brought some evidence for us. We had a total of 15 bags, and these residues were not counted. We just made a visual registration of them because they seem to be quite dangerous. There seem to be some leftover of chemical products. So we decided to make a visual registration of it. However, it is quite representative of the activities in the marine around the area. Now back to you. Thank you, Gabi. Now going to our third part, after everything that has happened in the management residues services, I want to highlight once again, despite the intense provision of services, these practices are still identified. And this brings light to us because one of our concerns throughout our waste-free waters project, throughout the municipalities that we have been through, that have worked with us, we have been talking a lot about services, but we talk little about how the authorities use these services. Maybe opening a collection point is not enough. It's not the main activity, even though there will be irregular disposals. That's why we have highlighted the behavioral of users. Not only technical components are important here. So just one more highlight of these challenges. We proposed a script to Manaus for them to prevent pollution of waste due to solid residues. We suggested ways for them to follow, ways for the mayor of Manaus to prevent inappropriate disposal and leakage of residues into the sea. It's not just a recipe. It wouldn't work if it were a recipe. But to propose a solution and some more detailed analysis would be fundamental. But these are suggestions for the municipality to consider. And these ways were based on the sum up on our studies. And here you can see a little bit of our studies, which is control of the gray generators, One of the consequences of this problematic control are the visual problems, such as inappropriate disposals, such as the ones generated from the big generators or the small ones. And then irregular disposals happens, and many of these materials go into the sea. So they end up on the soil, and they end up in the sea or in the rivers. For the collected residues, we have a low level of recovery and recycling because many reasons influence, because of the low segregation at the source, the distance, and the low capacity of a future landfill. Because landfills are closed to their endpoint, and there might be some alternatives for the final disposal. So what are the ways that we found? We found 3 ways. Obviously, the starting point, the base to build this change, and mainly the destination for recognized as the final destination of the resource. So a reduction of the irregular disposal in every scale, which should be followed by some monitoring, always. And I think this is our word of order, because there's no point into implementing a service if there's no monitoring on it. On our second suggestion, we suggested increase of recycling services, mainly the plastics, and share the responsibility between the industries, governments, and citizens. So this is a responsibility from all of us. It's a shared responsibility, and it's encouraged by the national policy of solid residues. And this is essential to determine the destination of these materials. And of course, some good segregation at the source to create conditions. And finally, the third way, which is use the residues as resources, because solutions may be combined, but they may have different destinations besides the final destination. So we can use some residues as fertilizers or to produce fuels, secondary materials, for example, secondary materials from the recycling, we can use them for something else. So we take them away from the final disposal in the landfill. Now, going into details of these suggestions, our starting point starts with definition of responsibility. In our diagnosis, we identified the difficulties of defining responsibilities, and this is so important to change. So after bringing the role of the main generator into this, Manaus has several actions ongoing, and this can be expanded. So these successful measures can be expanded, and then we must find ways for that. So there must be a system to control the flow, working for all the generators, and use the data of the system to control the transportation of these residues. Transport must be mapping, must be accompanied since it's generators. But we know it all has a cost. Everything has a cost. It's not a low cost. Abrelp has been highlighting the importance of financial independence, which is now also brought as a mark on sanitation departments and the sanitation areas. So through our suggestions, we hope this is an instrument to charge based on the principle of the polluting agent and the paying agent, and also legal sanctions applied for those who do not meet the law. And just to continue, when on this step of creating the basis, we highlight good communication for appropriate disposal. This is what we fight for. So we have to make awareness campaigns into strategic places, predefined strategic places, and the creation of one cleaning day in Manaus. And this brings a very special role to communication. We have to bring people into it. Cleaning works very well on these mass movements, and we're going to explore that on our presentation and in the afternoon. Besides, we can have a reimbursement system for packings and a measurement system of the amount of residues inappropriately disposed. We also highlight a program of reuse and fix of furniture, electronics, vehicles of public bodies. And finally, for these public bodies, there must be rules of public purchases. Now, going to our second way, our second suggestion, these are some actions to improve recycling, which may be through measurable goals for 2030 for recycling paper, plastic, metal, and other materials. The initiative to take advantage of green residues, we can expand that. We have to find a noble use for this material. And also, communication should be present as information, telling about the good segregation at the source of the residues to avoid contamination of dry recycling materials. Good segregation is a fundamental step to increase recycling. And finally, our third step, our third suggestion is our destination, with actions that use residues as a resource. So three main proposals that I want to highlight here, as Gabriela has said, these materials are going to be available at Abrelp and ISVA platforms. So you can get in contact with this information into more details. But in very short, we want to offer viable, feasible studies to implement a thermal treatment plant. We want to expand the gas collection system, which already exists. Nowadays, energy is used for internal supply of the landfill, so we want to offer the suggestion to create this project, and these should be used as a fuel as well. And also feasible studies for selective collections of organic residues. Now, it's also important to highlight the importance of good segregation at the source. So we have to recognize the biological role here. So we really propose feasible studies for this selective collection. And now I'll give the floor to Gabriela back again, so she can make some assessments, evaluations, and close this presentation. Great, thank you. Here we are getting closer to the 40 of our second session about Manaus. As you have seen, we have these three ways, these three suggestions, and their sequence is organized on this route on this script we made to Manaus, and we can take some lessons out of it, some lessons learned to other cities. At the same time, it's not just a standard, okay? It's not, but we are understanding all the urban managements, the urban characteristics, local culture, local economy, geographical characteristics. And we know that we can start the first step by strengthening regulatory and inspection tools and also communication. These are not structures, but these are structuring pillars. So these are actions, these are themes that are going to enable us to go to our second suggestion, to go and bring more structure so we can enable the environment, we can enable the area, and then bring some return of materials. We can have better segregation, we can have waste sorting, as we have said before. And segregation at the source will bring better valuation of these materials and the communication of these materials locally. I have seen we have some questions and comments on our chat on YouTube. We're going to get there on our Q&A, but all possibilities were considered to go to our third way, to our third step, which is to think about using the energy supply of the landfill itself, but also consider the industries, the long distance, the challenges that we have to go through. And we also consider of taking advantage of all this energy, especially because when we think that the heart of the Amazon, actions there have to be really well thought, because this brings really significant impacts in this environment. So thank you. You can go to the next slide. So these are our suggestions, our recommendations, because throughout these 3 steps, we had several proposals. And if I'm not wrong, those were 26 or 28 proposals in total. Obviously, we need to give priority, right? So you give me 26 proposals. So where should I start? And we have chosen the 2 most voted ones in our criteria analysis in the project in each step. So in our first step, we have a characterization of the origin of the inappropriately disposed residues. There may be a GPS system at the collection front, or a registration of the generation, registration of those who are hired, how much waste is generated. So there's a possibility to have this data bank to understand not only the domicile residues, but also commercial residues. Domicile residues is totally responsibility of the government. But what about supermarkets, restaurants, and many other establishments? Many other establishments that create residues to be part of it.
It's also an important part of the system to be able to punish people and actors who don't do what they are required to do. Of course, we have a number of different attempts that we make before moving to the punishment stage. So first, we always try to communicate as best we can in order to prevent this type of punishment. Because applying fees and fines, that brings with it the requirement for inspections and inspectors. So that's something else that we need to control. So first, why not try to raise awareness and engage people so that that doesn't happen? So those are the 2 proposals in our initial kickoff. And then we move on to pathway 2, which are a pair of solutions that we consider to be essential. If we want to prevent waste from reaching the ocean, then we need to find out where. we need to define a location for us to focus on. Because once the initial excitement is past, we become frustrated with the idea of continuity. We need to know how well our efforts are tracking. Are we having an impact on this problem? And so establishing measurable metrics that we can track and follow over these decades, that's a good horizon for us to look at. And along with that, why not try a system that is very well known and long established in many places around the world and in Brazil, which is refunds for packaging. Not necessarily giving credits but the fact is that when you buy the product, you will pay you will pay, and part of your payment will be refunded when you return the package. That's one solution. But you can also offer produce and other food products upon return of the packaging. You can also offer discounts on public services and taxes for people who return products, and other solutions. So over time, you can monitor and track adherence to this refund, and you may come to a point in the future when you won't even have to offer these refunds anymore. It might be in the year 2150, but it could happen. And to do that, we need to create this culture and this habit. And lastly, we have route number 3, which is a change of paradigm in waste management. Because we can't talk about expansion when we don't even have implementation yet. But we would like to work on composting. There are many techniques that can be implemented within the city limits because people are more aware of composting. So that's something we can put in practice. But people will ask us, but why are you talking about composting? We're talking about, ocean trash. Well, we need to teach people that proper waste separation at the source will increase the quality throughout the system. If you sort waste at your house, then you will be more aware of your waste, and you will be indirectly encouraged to dispose of your packaging properly. So these two elements were brought up as important, but they're not the only ones. So biomanagement and biogas is a way that we can use to supply our efforts. They produce energy. When Fernanda showed the mosaic of materials that today no one wants them in Manaus, but apparently they might have value in other locations, such as here in Santos. But in Manaus, they wind up in a landfill. So why not think about the energy that they represent? We can prevent these potentially valuable materials from winding up in the streams and rivers. So that all of that needs to be part of the equation. And now moving on, almost at the end here, the criteria that we ranked here in terms of priorities of our proposals, thinking about the legitimacy, transparency, and equity, or equitableness, I should say. These 3 paths, they will help us to provide appropriate information, environmentally, socially. They are ways through which we can work across the board to make the project viable and to help us remember that public policies need to think first and foremost about people. And the issue is, did things work? Everyone is responsible. Oh, did the project not work? Then everyone is responsible because it was a collective effort, weighing all the pros and cons. So that's transparency. And equitableness has to do with the fact that it can't benefit just one sphere. We can't improve things for the city while we make it worse for the environment or for the economy or for the country. So we need to keep everything balanced. And that's why path number 3, when we talk about composting, we need to remember that it's gradual. First, we need to work on one aspect, and then consequently, as a result of that, work on the other structures so that they can be added to this successful project. I'm talking about Manaus here. And that's it for now. We have space for questions now. I think we do have some questions. Let me just check what kind of comments we have received. I hope I pronounce your name properly. Anik Martins, talking about energy production. As I mentioned here in my last slide, Fernanda, please add on to what I said. But yes, energy production was something that we considered, and it is found throughout Brazil, as Jamasi mentioned, and as everyone who works with solid waste knows, Brazil is a country with 3,000 landfills. And this journey that we have to follow, if we want to close them down immediately, stop feeding these landfills, and start giving residue a more noble destination, then we need to think about energy production. We have an imminent energy crisis, and it's highly dependent on water resources. And although they use clean sources of water, they do have an impact on energy and the climate. There are other decentralized sources of energy production that solve the two issues we have: the residue that could not be prevented and the energy demand that always grows, because everyone wants to be connected, everyone wants electronics. So we need to think that other sources are required. Just to add, our project is always focused on the hierarchy of waste. So all types of final destinations are considered, but there is always a portion that is not employed properly because it didn't get a nobler destination and it wasn't included in the country's scope. And I think that's what integrated management refers to. It's about solutions that can handle all of these challenges. So our proposal focuses on that. Exactly. Especially when we know that our technical team is composed of so many international agents. We have the ISWA and their specialists. We have specialists from Sweden, from Greece, from England. Everyone is devoted to looking at Manaus and its characteristics and finding solutions. We are not aiming here to talk about emotions and that's it. We're not interested in opinions without a technical analysis. We did do technical analysis. None of them, however, were in depth because right now we are at the initial stages. We're looking at an overview with Manaus City Hall and the Department of Public Sanitation and Waste Management. And together we will decide the best routes for Manaus to take. I'd like to acknowledge here some of the comments that were made on the chat, some from Brazil, some from abroad. I saw some comments from Sahas. I saw some people saying that they want to talk to us and share more about the project. So the links, as we've mentioned, the route is about preventing the waste from reaching the water. And this will be made available at the ISWA site. And please contact our technical team if you have any other questions. Fernanda, thank you. I want to thank everybody for your participation. We are so proud of this project. And I hope we can continue adding our weight to these efforts. Paulo, I see you're here. The Waste-Free Water project is really dependent on all of you. So we're at your disposal. So thank you very much. This is at the time where we will have a short pause. We are talking no longer about Manaus and now about Bahia. It followed a very similar path, but the recommendation did not go the technology route. It went a different route. We're talking about the corporate environment, talking about ESGs. It's a hashtag that is trending here in corporate campaigns, and talking about governance in a region that has 3 cities that share an amazing ecosystem and yet, nevertheless, has some challenges when talking about preventing sea litter. And now I would happy to bring Lorena here, who is coordinator for this project. Welcome, Lorena. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Let's climb this mountain together.
Yeah, now let's move forward. I'm gonna share, I think you're seeing my screen already. I'm gonna put it on the presentation mode here. Is everything all set? So let's go. Local management scenario, which is a regional management. We considered the regional scenario, but we had to consider all the particularities of the 3 administrations comprising Ilha Grande Bay, Paraty, Mangaratiba, and Angra dos Reis, along with our partners. We were the only ones who went to the field. I'm sure our partners would be delighted to be there. Who knows? Maybe if our pandemic scenario gets better, maybe we can return to working on the field with incredible local people. I want to make my acknowledgement to ISFA, which has been our local support to get in contact with the mayors and the town hall to make all these things happen. Just like Manaus, we also have a schedule. We started before in Manaus because we had another boom in the pandemic. So we went to Ilha Grande in October. We had a problem in Manaus in the end of the year. So we had our guardians of this waste-free project have helped us to carry out and conduct this project in the state of Rio. So we made this launch involving key people, because one of our premises is to have partnerships with local authorities and with organizations that are already working on the topic. We are outsiders. We are just arriving and we are trying to sort out the problems. But we have to have partnerships. We have to have engagement of people, because when we leave, others will have to continue and we have to lead. They have to take these structures forward. In November, we had some field work with samples, collections, and we had some great expectations. I'm going to talk this later on. You are all invited to my workshop, the workshop about local samples in the afternoon, because we're going to talk about the good weather to carry on the activities at ease. We had made collections on windy weather, rainy weather, and that's horrible. But if the weather is good, then it helps us. And after, we have the separation, the segregation step. And we also have to lead that on our methodology. After this sample collection and understanding of what is taken to the water, we had some reference and bibliographic references already, because there are already some academic and scientific work on the impact of sea litter in Ilha Grande Bay. And in March and April, we made the diagnostics, and continuing, we made the proposal of our governance. So our first part, the management system in the Bay of Ilha Grande. As I said, it comprises of 3 cities. It does not comprise the whole area of Mangaratiba. So we also had to take care and understand which area is comprised, which is mainly the area of Conceição do Jacareí. We also have Angra dos Reis, which is the continent, and also the area of Ilha Grande, and also Paraty, with its differences in numbers of inhabitants. Angra dos Reis, of course, is the area with more inhabitants. And also some areas are irregularly occupied by people. So this is a problem all over the world, all over Brazil, all over the world. But why do we say that when we talk about sea litter prevention? Because these places don't have a proper structure for residue collection, mainly solid residues. If they don't collect, they are inappropriately disposed. And in these regions, the solid waste ends up going to the sea. Another important point, when we were doing our survey, when we were working on residues management of every single city, we understood that collection rates are pretty different from one city to another, and which is quite concerning, because this is not pretty different from other municipalities in Brazil, as we have only 3% of recovery of materials and we have been like 30 years already, and we haven't had much improvement. But our improvement increases just a little as the year goes by. And I'm going to show a little bit of the characteristics of each area. And you'll be able to see that Mangaratiba has a high rate in its municipality because they have consistent activities there when you talk about recycling. Angra dos Reis has a low percentage, but of course, if we consider a territory of 400,000 inhabitants, and much of it is irregular occupied, we know that the structure is inefficient. So I have to provide a minimum of appropriate management. And this is often focused on regular collection and shipping to landfill. And all this waste sorting ends up being a second plan because the others are needs more urgent actions. And of course, in this area has many more people because people stay, there are many tourists, people stay in hotels, people go on boat rides, and the control of all these residues is pretty difficult to be controlled. So our analysis controls the percentage and also the context of this percentage. Paraty also has a low percentage of waste sorting. About the management, responsibility of the residues management in Mangaratiba is responsibility of the coordination and inspection of the urban cleaning services by the Secretariat of Public Services and Transportation. We understand that these secretariats are a means, they make a bridge because they are responsible for environmental education. Some of them, they manage waste sorting, but they work much more on communication. And but here we focus much more on the secretariats, which have agreements, contracts, but we did not ignore the actions made by other secretariats in waste management. So you can see that there is 100% coverage here. It is a daily collection, cutting of trees is also made daily, and there is waste sorting made door to door 3 times a week. They have voluntary spots for delivery, and they have eco points, which comprises 21 places in the city. And there is also the collection on both collections, which happens 3 times a week.
These services are executed by 3 companies that are hired by the city. The city also implements a number of different solutions like tree trimming and large groups of volunteers. And like I said, you can see here on the map the CTR where the waste is taken for sorting. Moving now to Paraty, the city's Department of Infrastructure and Transportation is responsible for this. So there's household collection every day within the urban region, 3 times a week in the rural region, and twice a week in the island regions. Plant trimming and sweeping is done every day in some urban neighborhoods, that is. Waste sorting is also something that's done door to door by the cooperative, but it's partial. It doesn't take place in every part of the territory. So that's something we have to pay attention to. When a city says, oh yes, we do have waste sorting, well, we need to make sure that that's something that they do everywhere within their territory and not just, in this closer to the city center. As far as beach and water body cleaning, that's something that's done by large groups of people, and on the seas, it's done twice a week. And so we really had to put put our money where our mouth was and really go out there and investigate. Here, the CTR is located 84 kilometers from the city. So you can see it's very far away from the city. It is technically adequate, but it's located very far away. And lastly, the city of Angra dos Reis has its coordination centered in the executive secretary of the city management. So there are two private companies that are hired to do this, and that includes trimming, mowing lawns, replacing manhole covers, and all sorts of different things. It's a very vast scope. We need to understand that there's collection, transportation, and disposal. And Angra dos Reis, here you can see the panorama. So they collect mixed waste from Ilha Grande. So the waste comes by boat from Ilha Grande, because Ilha Grande has a considerable population and a significant flow of tourism and transportation. There is the urban region in Angra dos Reis. It's very extensive, and it's done door to door for household waste. Waste sorting is done on a volunteer basis, so there is no door-to-door collection of recycling. It did occur in the past, but no longer. And it's done using PEVs, and residents are expected to go to these fixed locations. So even though there is no door-to-door collection, there are itinerant PEVs, and they help bring collection points closer to people's homes. And then there are specific points for specific things, such as tires, electronics, and lubricants and oils. And that's done by an outsourced company. Angra dos Reis also outsources its landfill to CTR, to the Costa Verde CTR, but it's located a lot closer to it. And then there's also a location called Vila do Abrão, which is a lot farther away. The waste is collected by a tractor, put into bags. It's boarded onto a ferry, and then from there it goes to Angra dos Reis, and then from there by land to the Costa Verde CTR. So people who are not directly involved in waste management, when they go to these amazing places for vacation, they might do everything they're supposed to, by putting garbage in its place and so on. They are minimizing their impact, yes, but we need to remember that these places, they need to be prepared not just to receive people like us who behave properly, but also other people who might not. And it has to be the same structure. The ferry can't stop landing at Vila do Abrão. It can't turn into a pseudo landfill. All of this has costs, and requires technical abilities. And so that's why we need to look at waste management first before going out into the field. Well, after this diagnostic has been done, we found some conclusions, just like we did for Manaus. By studying the legislation, we saw that there is no large producer law, unlike Manaus. There is a state incentive, but in terms of municipal incentives, something that would encourage, hotels, restaurants, bars, and other locations to really encourage them to handle their waste properly. That's something that's not in place. And it all falls on the shoulders of the local city halls. In terms of waste selection, we did arrive at a reference number, but we weren't able to dive into the details. We don't know if these numbers are the results of efforts. We don't have numbers from the informal sectors. And the informal sector really varies depending on time of year and culture. So we were very dedicated to the data that we received, but there is a warning light telling us that these numbers could be better informed. And when we talk about landfills, well, the waste in this region has to travel a long distance in order to reach the landfill. On the way, from the source to its destination, so many things can happen. This waste material can fly out from the trucks. They can leak onto the surrounding land. There's costs involved. There's fuel that's burned. So there's a lot of risks, not just on land, but over sea as well. When the ferry leaves one city and goes to the other, this waste is traveling over the water, and a lot can happen along the way. Moving now to Lorena, the floor is yours. Well, part 2, what goes to the ocean? So we went out on the field and really diagnosed the collection and services that are offered and try to understand why so much material winds up on the sand and on the water. Well, moving out to the field, we had great conversations with a local partner who intermediated our conversations with the city halls to really explain the critical points of our sampling collection. Initially, we had 11 locations, which became 12. When we were on the field, the Mangaratiba City Hall told us, look, there's a very important location that you were missing, and so we added it. There is a lot of planning that's done. On the field, we investigate other possibilities. So we worked at 3 transects in each city. In all, we had 10 beaches and 2 mangroves. And of course, respecting all the standards and requirements, we never forgot that we were during a pandemic. So we had 8 participants per collection point. And we actually don't recommend using too many people because a sampling collection, it requires really coordination, and that's best done with a smaller number of people. The first city we visited and where we spent one day working is called Conceição de Jacareí, on the right here. We visited beaches with different profiles. One is very residential, and it's visited by people who live there. The Centro Beach on the left and Saco Beach on the middle, and then the Conceição de Jacareí Beach on the right. And it's important to see the surrounding regions. The surroundings tell us a lot about a beach, about what type of materials could be leaking through. In Centro Beach on the left, there's a profile of get-togethers and parties. So we found waste that's very typical of parties from bars. This is very important to assess. Saco Beach in the center is visited mostly by local residents. So the waste was mostly from that type of residence and some public buildings. On the other hand, Conceição de Jacareí Beach, it has a path out to more touristy locations. So it has more tourists. And it has a higher chance of ship waste. And so that's one of the sources of leaks that we had to look for. In our sampling collection, we carried out a gravimetric study here and took out the averages. And we found that in Mangaratiba, approximately 40% of waste is plastic. 7% were styrofoam and similar. Yes, styrofoam is a type of plastic, but we need to consider it specifically and separately from other plastics. And I'll tell you why. Styrofoam is, there's a lot of it in mangroves. So we need to find out what's going on, because many of these pieces of styrofoam, they come from packaging material, and they also come from ships. So we need to focus on this percentage. And that's why I'm bringing it up now, because I'm always asked this question. So yes, we do separate styrofoam from plastic. So 42% plastic, and most of these are fragments of soft and hard plastic. Fragments, as Gabriela said, for Manaus, they tell a story because the motion of the waves has already degraded these plastics. So it's very difficult to determine the source of these materials. So when we find an intact package, that's a win for us, because we can prove where it is that all these fragments are coming from, all these disposables. Disposables like cutlery, straws, many different types of single-use plastics. And they're really tied to the parties that we see in Centro Beach. And also local trades and local markets. Many families will take food to the beach, and their residue will fragment. And I'd like to draw some attention to glass. It's quite representative. It's a little bit lower if compared to paper and cardboard. But we found a lot of fragments of glass in Centro Beach, 7.7%. A lot of broken glass beer bottles. It's actually kind of dangerous to walk around there barefoot. We found a lot of broken glass. And on the next slide, you'll see some of what we found in this same beach, where we found so many fragments of glass. We also found a lot of many buttons from clothes. It was kind of curious. In this first photo, if you just glance at it, it's not easy to see a button, but it's there. So bringing some attention to the people doing this collection, because the beach had a lot of seashells and other residue that kind of gets camouflaged. We need to look carefully because there's a lot of residue that's hidden in these shells. Buttons from clothes, plastic parts from toys. We found 2 packages of lubricant oil, and there are ships there. So this is a reverse logistic issue. We found masks, over the pandemic. We've seen lots of news from various parts around the world, and things were no different here for us. Lots of masks, whether they were disposable or made of fabric. And that makes us ask, what is it that people are doing? Often the masks fly away. That happens. We know that happens. But inappropriate disposal is still significant. We found 3 masks in Mangaratiba alone, others in Paraty. In Ilha Grande, we also found masks. This region really draws our attention to some of these items that are very dangerous. And many straws, as we all know. We've long heard about the incidences of straws, lots of cigarette butts as well, as we have seen in other sampling collections. In Paraty, we selected 3 transects as well, but they were selected from the same beach. Why did we do that? Because this beach has widely differing profiles depending on where you are. On the right here, you can see one beach is closer to the pier, another is closer to the open sea and the historic city center, and the other is near the mangroves. So we selected this beach for its strategic reasons. And also thinking about the surroundings, it's not a very large location. The beaches are close to one another. You can see on the satellite photo. But these transects, I'd like to emphasize, we will explain in the afternoon how the transects are created, if they're regular or irregular, how to calculate. So visit our workshop because it's very interesting.
Well, that's it. We chose this region due to its diversity. We also found lots of plastic, 70% of plastic, considering 4% styrofoam. The most items found on these beaches are styrofoam and hard and soft plastic, as well as supermarket plastic bags, because people end up using it too much. They take it to the beach and leave it there. And many things can happen on the way. People leave it there, they just run and leave the plastic back there. It becomes a present residue on the sand. Too many caps, too many bottle caps, too many PET bottles. We have found plastic cups in every beach, cigarette butts, which we have seen that in Santos, it is the residue we find the most. Many people bury it on the sand because they think it's going to decompose, but they forget there's plastic and chemical products in the cigarette butts, so it's not appropriate disposal for it. And near the pier, we found a lot of Eppendorf pins, which is used in laboratories, but it is also used to keep drugs. So these are some social behaviors that we can observe. And these are pictures, some pictures that have called our attention. Containers of oils, which is also integrated in residues management, along with the industries. They also have the responsibility to implement and to manage all these types of waste. Items that are dangerous as well. As you can see, a condom, we have found things like that. Diapers, we also have to use gloves when we are working, we have to pay attention. Because if you see it by far, you imagine it's just one plastic bag. But when you get closer, we see what it really is. So we have to be careful when dealing with these items. And some items that are present on the sand for a long time, such as some items that have some sea gravel on the top of it. It means that they are there for a long time already. For me, in one of these pictures over here, you can see a tennis ball, which is totally covered by sea gravels. In Angra dos Reis, in the continental area of Angra dos Reis, we chose 3 beaches, Praia da Monsuaba, which is not visited by inhabitants or by tourists. Some people working on the kiosks over there have called our attention, saying that we shouldn't get into the water because people dispose the untreated sewer there, untreated waste there. So cleaning over there is something that has called our attention. The beach of the airport, called Praia do Aeroporto, had lots of users, and we have seen that it's a custom, it's a routine of many people who visit there. They end up having some snacks over there, and they leave the trash behind. And also Manguezal da Japuíba, Japuíba Mangrove. We found too many Empendorf pins there. And here you can see some points that we have made our collections, which are very diverse. Praia da Monsuaba is pretty close to the port of Petrobras. It has a diving center, and it's very close to the residents. And also the other 2 beaches have some inappropriate occupations. Again, the proportion of plastic found is what calls our attention the most, which is almost 50%, plus styrofoam, which is more than 23%. In Monsuaba Beach, we had lots of cigarette butts and soft plastic. In Aeroporto Beach, we had lots of fragments of soft plastic too. And in Japuíba Mangrove, we had lots of styrofoam fragments and Eppendorf tubes. Besides paper and cardboards, of course. We didn't find much paper and cardboards due to the hydrodynamics, because of what people end up doing there. And it's a good idea to have that in mind, to have the gravimetric composition in mind, because we have to highlight that on our surveys. These are pictures of some items. So we saw some packings of hygiene products, such as clothing softening, dirty diapers. Pretty often people change the baby's diaper and leave the dirty diapers behind. Perfume bottles. I remember I was a child when that perfume was sold. So that is a pretty old item. And it was there. I don't know for how long. Helmets. Just one comment. There is not so much time since you were a child, right? That was just a comment, okay? Yeah, but we find sewing treatment tubes. And we talked to our partners and they told us there is a sewage treatment plant close to that region. So we found PO bowls of aquariums, which is also used in sewage treatment. And I have a picture to show you about that. And again, we have dangerous items such as the syringe and the cleaning containers, cleaning packings. In Angra dos Reis, in Ilha Grande, it is a set comprised of 187 isles, and the base, the administration base, and the main point of it is based on Vila do Abrão. The chosen islands for our project were Praia das Baleias and Praia de Lopes Mendes. Praia das Baleias, Baleias Beach, is turned into the continent. It's not in the tourist route, which is important. And as it's not in the tourist route, it doesn't have a regular cleaning activity. So it has about 1,800 square meters of area. And in Lopes Mendes Beach, it has about 5 kilometers of area. So that's why we chose these two different beaches to choose different types of behavior. And these are islands, right? So we found almost 78%. I mean, 80% if we consider styrofoam, if we consider plastic and styrofoam, this calls really our attention. Lots of residues comes from the boat or come from the sea tides. And many people go to these areas by private boats, and they end up leaving the trash there. And whenever there is no regular cleaning activity, the trash is just left behind. We had lots of fragments of soft and hard plastics, nylon lines, fishing lines, which is a huge problem to the fauna. This is the place where we found it the most. And this is pretty hard to see because they are often buried on the sand. That's why this diagnosis is important, because we have to find logistic ways for these type of activities. In Lopes Mendes, we found lots of laminated packings, aluminum packings, like snack packings or candy packings, because instead of taking food to the beach, people usually take these snacks. And here you can see some images of items found in the beaches of Ilha Grande. Some toys, a cap, a water gallon cap. And these are items that make us think about what could be done, as we have some items of single disposal, because you use it only once and you have to dispose it. People often put it on the waste sorting, hoping that it's going to be recycled, but it's not. It gets lost on the way, and it may reach the sewage system and consequently may reach the beach. So we found lots of Eppendorf tubes, some of them even with drugs inside. Syringe again, medicine, which is reverse logistics. So I took this picture, but we found meteorological radio station, and we saw there is a news saying that someone is looking for this radio, and it was there in Ilha Grande. So I think it has been through a long way. And we have made a gravimetric study on the area of Angra dos Reis and Ilha Grande. And again, we found a big problem of plastic and styrofoam, along with paper and cardboards. Because paper and cardboards have other items included, such as cigarette butts. That's why it's quite an expressive number, because cigarette butts have cellulose acetates, and that's why it comprises this classification of materials. We have to learn when items have several layers and which classification it comprises. And also, again, we have to consider the items of reverse logistics.
And now, looking at the overall gravimetric study, when combining these three locations, the complete gravimetrics of the Ilha Grande Bay is that 78% of materials have plastics a source, and paper and cardboard come in second, as I explained, which is something similar to what we see in other Brazilian locations like Santos, Manaus, Camboriú, and many other cities where we always find the same thing. So it's very important to highlight. And now, Gabriela, the floor is yours for this next part. Thank you, Lorena. It really was a mountain, huh? Doing all of this gravimetrics. Imagine we had 12 transects, 12 sampling regions, 12 locations where we collected, 12 spreadsheets, putting all this into Excel, and then starting to think, okay, we have data from the cities, we have information about what winds up on the water that we ourselves collected. Okay, so what does this information tell us? And what can we tell the cities who are engaged? Well, we use the Clean Coast Index methodology, which is to arrive at a number of items per square meter, a concentration, and then to extrapolate that to the beaches that we look at. And when we do this, we use both the CCI and another methodology that only focuses on plastic and styrofoam. And so for some of these, the result came back moderate or even clean. 2 transects in Paraty are incalculable because the locations were very hard to measure. They were irregular. But we have the visual results, which is also valid. And what really draws our attention is Angra dos Reis. It really, it had an extremely polluted result all across the board. And when you have this result and go back to analyze the information about urban usage, waste management, if you remember the percentages, less than 1%, things start to make sense. Residue and waste that isn't collected and isn't revalued, it winds up on the beach, on the water. That's the first thing. The second thing is, when you concentrate a greater portion of your population in irregular occupations, the waste that is produced in these locations winds up on the water. You also have the ocean currents and some other characteristics of the geography that tend to bring waste to certain places. As well, of course, as the city is located vertically, in higher elevations above the water, and it winds up that the city of Angra dos Reis will pay the bill for these other locations. And so from there, we can start thinking about what to do, because now we have our our problem has been mapped. And so we have the issue of governance, which was proposed in partnership with the Swedish Association, with the ISWA, and with the University of Leeds. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'm going to open this document because it deserves to be seen. It was designed to be worded in a way that is accessible by everyone. If you remember from our multi-factor analysis from Manaus, we had transparency, location, and some other factors, right? Well, these factors were transposed to Ilha Grande Bay, thinking about governance, because it uses the same basic points. And I'll show you this document firsthand. This is a PDF. I'm going to try to put it into reading mode. So we have here governance for prevention, waste-free water, and really the design that we came up with for this document, that specialists came up with, these are really experienced communicators who did this. This can be used both online and offline. In one of these, in some of these cities, you know, when they decide to reestablish a governance forum, this can be printed out and put on the wall so that people have access to it in printed format. And it looks like a sort of script. It is, but it's a script for proper governance. And if you're arriving right now, you can follow and see what has been done so far. We have the fundamental definition, but what about residue? Goals and stages of the proposal. We have basically 4 technical visits, consulting key actors, diagnostics, and proposals for integrated action. What has already been done up here on the right? We talk about what happened in October 29th, 2020, when we launched the project for 35 key agents from various spheres of society, which are well represented, the sampling collections and drawings of the most significant items we found. And here, an illustration of the sampling regions. Because someone who wants to look at this and understand it technically has access to the diagnostics. This is a bit of a more simpler explanation. It's universal. The diagnostic here on the left summarizes the most important aspects of each administration, Mangaratiba, Paraty, and Ilha dos Reis. So descriptions of some of the essential information, very well summarized. The main challenges on the right, emphasizing the large distances, the lack of consistent information, and the difficulty in collecting consistent information, the legislation, the consulting meeting that we had over an online solution because of the pandemic, of course, answering the basic questions like who, what, where, and how. How can we approach this problem? And 4 key contributions from these key agents. Responsibility is shared. It comes all the way from production, passes through the consumption and usage stage, and goes to the waste generation. This is a very interesting result of the meeting that we had, because we always dread the thought that when we put together public and private sectors, we think everyone's going to fight and argue. But often that's not what happens. And we reached a consensus in that meeting. This is the best part of this topic, waste-free waters. everyone needs to do their part. It's not one person's fault. Everyone can do their part. We also agreed that it's essential that we need to have a database. Mangaratiba could have maybe 22% of waste sorting. But as you saw, there are beaches in Mangaratiba that are rated as dirty, polluted. Well, Mangaratiba did its homework, but it suffers an influence from other neighboring cities, from within the same bay. So everyone needs to understand what's going on so that one party can encourage another to do their part. And also to say, look, I'm doing my part, aren't you going to do yours? And that way we create an actual governance that has a database that can be shared. And we also agreed that cities need to invest in infrastructure, communication, and education. These are the three essential pillars of reducing solid waste. And then from these four big contributions, we had 4 contributions of our own. The first action was to create a database. Waste sorting, waste collection, reverse logistics, how to send material to the landfills. Why not add all this in an online system every month or every 2 months, maybe? This information can be kept online. So we're starting a new type of waste sorting. Well, tell the world. That could be what Paraty needs. And it could be based on something they learned from Mangaratiba. And this can be based on quantitative data, not just the grapevine, which is something we like, but we can make decisions based on evidence. And that can lead to investments, public policies, and adjustments to the management system. And our basic assumptions, such as the online format and a minimum amount of work, maybe just regular collection and moving on to waste sorting, maybe triage and treatment, and final destination. Those are the bare minimums of the scope that is required in the management. And number 2, communication and education. This needs to be done as a group. We need to understand that when I install a waste can shaped like a fish, like this fish can we see here, this is a fun way to remind people that the water has fish that live in it. And that's a way to remind them to put garbage in its place. Of course, it needs to be improved. The fish is made of a mesh that is too big, and some of the waste tends to fall through it. So that's something we learned. It's present in the diagnostics. And so we realized that this type of waste can is something that we can put in other locations with a finer mesh. Some information present on signboards is another idea. We found some of this in Lopes Mendes Beach, for instance. There is no garbage can provided there, but the local residents put a sign up. And so the residents who live there can try to raise awareness among the tourists. Say things like, listen, you came here, you enjoyed the beach, put garbage in its place. So the residents can implement this and create their own collection point. We like enjoying these areas, so we need to understand that these locations are extremely complex to be able to act as a tourist destination. And of course, the gravimetrics that Lorena showed us. We have beverage packs, like 6-can packages. We have fragments of styrofoam boxes and coolers. Often this winds up on the water, sometimes when you're, transporting it from one place to another. We need to ask ourselves, do we need to ban these products and say this material is outlawed from these islands, and that'll result in a need for inspections? Or should we take a step back and raise awareness, talk to everyone, bring this information to tourists? They need to understand that a small location in Mangaratiba can have 400 different items of waste. So why not turn this information into communication? That'll help. That's monitoring.
Of course, also at schools, mainly in cities as involved with this ecosystem and with this source of resources and such an important economy. Why don't we do a sample research, classify residues? Why don't we take students to the beach and show them the impact of the residues and concentrations they have? If it is comprised in a governance proposal, it will give more importance for Paraty and Ilha Grande Bay to do the same on their schools. Because this happens once in a while, but these are also made by non-profit organization. But why not institutionalize it and make it a public policy? Third action, installment of a regional central of material recovery. If we do the same thing as we did in Manaus, it would be like a transition between steps 2 and 3. There's a policy on investment. It will require a feasibility study on legal and regulatory aspects. But after this, just imagine a central spot of recycling residues. This is going to shorten the distance the trucks go until the landfills. This is going to bring more value because we're going to take more advantage of these materials and mobilization so that the central spot is going to receive these residues. So we strongly recommend this screening central, which may also comprise some composting system or energy recovery and provide a better destination instead of running through several kilometers until the landfill. And after that, these landfills, we know they have short periods of life. And also the great generators. Of course, they have to be responsible for waste sorting. And when creating this regional center, these great generators can pay for the use of this central. And this is going to bring some revenue for them, which is going to be managed by the municipal governance, for example. Of course, comprised by these 3 municipalities, these 3 administrations. And finally, in the end, we reinforce our premises to keep governance. We have to search for some consensus, responsibilities, transparency, equity and inclusion, efficacy and efficiency, and participation. Social participation is going to divide responsibilities because we make it real and we make public policies with people and not to the people. People have to get engaged with the residues they provide, the residues they made. So they have to get involved into making decisions too, based on technical information and transparent information. So this is our project, Waste Free Waters. We are really proud of it. We're going to make it available online for you. And that was basically it. I'd like you to keep on with us because we have a surprise at the end. So continue here with us. But before going to Q&A, I'd like to check if Ulisses Mansour from Ilha Grande Bay Committee has a good connection, because I'd like him to speak. Otherwise, I just want to thank for the great support of the committee and Ulisses' support, who helped us so much in the collections in the region of Ilha Grande. And he has mobilized children to work on it too. His project has a beautiful story and also a book that tells the story of their mobilization, how they started, how they act in favor of sea litter prevention. Lottie, do you want to add something? I think this is it. I just want to reinforce the infant brigades. They have a wonderful work in Ilha Grande. And without them, we wouldn't have any type of collection there, any type regarding the recycling materials. So I really acknowledge them. Ulisses, are you there? I'm not pretty sure. He sent me a message saying that he has a problem because in Ilha Grande region, we have several connections problems. This has also happened in our consultative meeting because the gods of weather have to help us with our transmissions, or we have to go in person. Maybe this will sort out, but that's what we have so far in this period of that we are living. Can you speak, Lucis? Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes. First, I'd like to thank you for the invitation to be part of this event. Thank you very much for your appraisals. Thank you, you guys from the Children's Brigade. We have been working together for some years on waste sorting. And I would like to congratulate you for this excellent project that you have performed here in our region. Of course, this is going to add a lot to us. And then we can focus our efforts to reduce this issue of sea litter. So thank you very much. And congratulate you all. I'm sorry that my connection is not really good today because I can't open my camera because of my connection. So that's why I'm just using the audio feature. That's fine, Ulisses. Thank you. Thank you for your effort, for being here, for your kind words. We will still get in contact. We will still be in contact. After this governance proposal, we have more details for you guys from the committee. So we end up the cycle here with the conference, but our assignments will continue in Ilha Grande Bay. And also in the other 8 municipalities that I want to name them here. I want to start by Santos in the state of São Paulo, Bertioga, which is the closest city, Balneário Camboriú in Santa Catarina, which has received the first acknowledgement of a municipality on the waste-free water. And we are also going to acknowledge the other municipalities just to continue. Rio de Janeiro, the 3 municipalities of Ilha Grande Bay, Ipojuca in Pernambuco, Fortaleza in Ceará, São Luís in Maranhão, and Manaus in Amazonas. These municipalities are really committed to the premises on sea litter prevention. I see there is a comment on YouTube about the paying the paying part. But yes, there must be someone local who could manage, and someone who could, and these great generators, they have to do the management of these residues. It shouldn't be totally attached to public management, but of course, these huge hotels, networks, restaurants, shopping centers, all the establishments need to contribute with the system, and they need to be responsible for their waste. Because it seems that they can create residues, they can provide their clients with all their consumptions they need, but they have no responsibility with the consequences. And it's not right that this becomes the municipality's responsibility. It's not right, because we have several establishments all over Brazil, and we have several other types of inappropriate disposals that bring several consequences to us. And we, as citizens, we will have to pay for that. Because, of course, our municipal budget will have to be used for these cleaning activities, whereas this could be avoided. So yes, we reinforce that these great generators could have some more responsibility and some partnership with the public authorities. We're going to end up this morning session here. I'd like to remember that we have the workshops for those who are registered starting at 2 p.m. You all have received the links on your emails. We're waiting for you. We're happily waiting for you. So I'm going to end up here, this first session. And Fernanda is going to help us just to give a brief about the project. The project held in Santos had 2 pilot programs. One of them is called Areia Limpa Operations, Clean Sands Operations, which focus on sea sand. And we had a pioneer one called Beco Limpo Project, Clean Stream Project. Beco Limpo is a project that interferes as least as possible in communities. It doesn't bring any moral messages. It's not to teach anything. It's just a partnership. It's just an intervention, an urban intervention of highly management of residues and social participation so that people don't leave litter on the sea. But it's an intermediary structure, you know, it's just a bridge to make this collectiveness, to make this movement all together. And take all these residues out of the stilts and take it to the proper places, proper disposal places. So we are together with the town hall as a project, of course, and we had all this dialogue with the communities, with Vila Gil da Dyke in Santos, and now you're gonna watch a video which you're gonna be able to watch on YouTube later on our YouTube channel. So this is our knowledge that we want to show you. So thank you very much. Yes, follow us on YouTube, follow our videos, including what we have showed today. All our conference is gonna be available on our YouTube channel. And follow us on our social media. I don't know if you're already following us, but you can see all the news there at first hand. So I'm gonna show you the video now. Discipline. Co-creation. Prototyping. Hands at work. Implementation. Beco Limpo project. Communication. Deposit your residue here.
Volta Boto, o tique quer, o tique quer. Volta Boto, o tique quer, o tique quer. Volta Boto, o tique quer, o tique quer. O lixo no beco vamos recolher, o lixo no mar não vamos jogar. O tique mais limpo vai ser bom de ver. Estamos trabalhando pra você.
According to one of the inhabitants of the dike, the Boto appears every now and then. We want him to come back always.
Mais limpo é tão bom de ver. Estamos trabalhando pra você voltar. Volta Boto, volta Boto. Volta Boto, volta Boto. Onde que te quer, onde que te quer. Volta Boto, volta Boto. Onde que te quer, onde que te quer. Volta Boto, volta Boto. Onde que te quer, onde que te quer. O lixo no beco vamos recolher. O lixo no mar não vamos jogar. Onde que mais limpo é tão bom de ver.
The project was carried out by Union Education of many partnerships of the program Waste Free Waters. Therefore, we need to continue. The beginning of fighting for the sea litter is made by small but great actions. So please come back, Boto, come back to our dike. Boto is our pink dolphin. Clean sea is made with engagement and actions.